Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 8th meeting of the Administration and Public Works Committee. I'm Jonathan Newsma, filling in for Councilmember Burns, who can't make it tonight. Happy New Year, everybody. I will ask staff to call a roll.
Councilmember Harris?
Present.
Councilmember Newsma?
Here?
Councilmember Burns? Councilmember Reed?
Present.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
With 4, we have a quorum.
All right. Since a quorum is present, we will carry on with the meeting, beginning with approval of our minutes from last time.
I'll move approval of our minutes from our December 11th, 2023 meeting, 2023 meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Harris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Minutes from last time are approved. That brings us to public comment. We do not have anybody signed up online. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people signed up in person. So I will ask in advance for forgiveness on my inability to read handwriting here, but I think first on the list is a Peg. There are folks who may have signed up online for City Council, but there's nobody signed up online for A&PW. While staff sorts that out, we'll add you to the in-person list. Let's start with, is it Peg? Followed by Jeff, and then maybe a Jenny. Is this Jamie? Okay.
Hi, I'm Peg Culhane, and I want to address the proposition for updating the policy regarding boat launch permits. My husband and I have been living in Evanston residence for 46 years, and we each keep a kayak at the Dempster Street Beach. This summer will be our 11th year kayaking at the beach after several years of being on the wait list, like most people experience when they're waiting to get a boat launch pass. There is no way that our 2 kayaks are going to fit on one rack. That's not going to be possible. At age 69, it will cause a significant physical impact for us to lug our 1 kayak to and from the beach every time we go out. We are active kayakers. We are on the lake all the time. I just want you to take Evanston's senior citizens into account while making this decision about boat launch passes. Equity for seniors is important too. Thank you.
Thank you. So next up is Jeff Forgash.
My name's Jeff Forgash, and so I'm the Vice Commodore of the Evanston Sailing and Kayak Organization, a nonprofit, and our Commodore will be speaking in a few minutes. So I've had boats at the Dempster Street Beach for about 35 or 37 years, and we've had this incredible relationship with the City of Evanston, the Recreation Department, to sit down 4 or 5 times a year and discuss the issues that are going on at the sailing beach, the boating beach. And so I just wanted to comment on the fact that we haven't had the opportunity until the notice came out, I think it was on Friday, about the proposed changes at the sailing, kayak, and paddleboard. And so I would like to simply state that we'd like to be involved before some of these decisions are being made, since we've had this relationship for probably 25 years, and we've been invited to sit down in advance of this kind of significant decision. Thanks.
Thank you. So next up is Jamie, I guess, followed by Ken, and then followed by Mr. or Ms. Wild.
Hi, my name is Jamie Egan. My wife and I, Mary Ann, have lived in Evanston since 1978. I went to high school in Evanston. I had all 3 of my children were born at Evanston Hospital. 4 of my 5 grandchildren were born in Evanston Hospital. And we've been a member of the beach community for over 2 decades. I, like everyone else, had to wait in line to get my rack, and then I had to wait in line to trade to get it down at a lower spot so that I could manage my kayak. Like Peg has stated, my age at this point does not allow me. I had a shoulder replaced last summer that I kind of feel kind of blindsided at this point because I just found out about this meeting on Saturday, and I think I've made significant payments for my equipment that I used. I've been loyal to Evanston. I'd like to see Evanston be loyal back to me, and that we're hoping that we can keep things the way they are now. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. So Ken Prosky is next.
Try not to vomit. I mean, the shirt, I know. I'm just kidding. I'm here to also talk about A16, the boat rack issue. My wife and I are also 46-year Evanston residents who have rented each a boat storage rack at the beach for decades, 40 years, over 40 years for me. Under the proposal before you, we would need to relinquish one of our racks. Even though both of us were on the wait list, we made significant investments on our vessels, and we've rented a rack every year since. We sympathize with the need to reduce the waiting list. However, there are 700 folks on this list, and the proposal before you would only reduce it by 49. To make a meaningful dent, a bolder and more effective approach is needed. We strongly encourage the city to look into other options, that there are other options, trust me. For example, add more kayak and paddleboard racks at the north end of the beach. There's plenty of room for them. The footprint is small. 600 of the 700 people on the waiting list are kayak and paddleboard people. Their racks don't take up much space, and there is room for them. It would reduce the wait list, and at the same time, it would generate a significant amount of revenue for the city. You could consider moving paddleboarders to another beach. There are other large beaches that have room for racks. And again, it would significantly increase revenue and reduce the waiting list. In the meantime, my request is, until a more effective solution is discussed and reached, grandfather the current rack holders to allow 2. That's what many of us have. And limit maybe the new applicants to 1. We do agree with one thing on the list. For those who rent a rack and store a vessel there but don't show up, they never bring a boat there the whole season, we do agree that they should forfeit their rack at some point, and somebody on the wait list should have that opportunity. And there are quite a few people who do that. I've been going there for 40 years. So in summary, we would like to recommend that you return this matter back to the Parks and Rec Board for a study of these and probably other options. This should be done with citizen engagement from boaters who have a wealth of experience, knowledge, and ideas. They would welcome the opportunity to participate and probably more likely to buy into the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. So I didn't catch it. Was it Mr. or Ms. Wild? Mr. Wild. That was him. Right, and then Mr. Egan.
Oh, you just spoke.
You did speak. Okay,
Yes.
that got it.
Okay.
We're sorting it out.
Well, good evening. I'm Payson Wild, and I am the president of the Evanston Sail and Paddle Association. We are a long-standing 501c3 organization that represents nearly 100 of the sailors and kayakers at Dempster Beach. Most of what I want to communicate is in the handouts. Okay to give handouts after this talk? Okay. Most of what I want to communicate is in the handouts, so I'll keep my remarks brief. We'd heard just last Friday afternoon that you will be considering policies tonight that most affect our current members, and we are asking you to defer this decision so that our membership, which has many ideas to enhance revenue beyond reassigning only 49 boat racks in order to reduce a waiting list of, Ken mentioned 700 people. We agree with the lakefront management on the need for equity, more revenue, reducing the long wait list for rack space. We don't agree with reassigning current rack space for holders of 2 racks, literally for years, and in some cases for decades, is a fair way to reach the goals. Those people who received their rack space under longstanding city rules, and as a consequence, they have made significant investments in purchasing and maintaining their watercraft. Limiting boat racks now in midstream is like asking Bears season ticket holders to reduce their 2 seats to 1 due to a long waiting list. Our members have really many good ideas as to how to enhance revenues, reduce the wait list, and our goal is to ask you to defer any decision tonight so that we may sit down with lakefront staff and work on a unified plan that is beneficial to the city and to current Evanstonians who have faithfully followed the rules for years. We want to be consulted. We want to be able to have input into this process and develop a unified plan with the city to present to you sometime at a later vote. Thank you.
All right, that's all we had on the list. Is there anybody else who thought they signed up or has not signed up but would like to address the committee? Going once, going twice. Okay, let's move on with the agenda. And
I
so
will-
far, I think there are a number of items that are going to be removed from the consent agenda. So Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you. Yeah, and I don't want to discuss all these. I'll discuss them in a lump sum, but A1, the bills pay list, and then A2 through A13, which I can, again, I think just address in one fell swoop. A16, about the boat launch, and then A20, I'll need to recuse myself.
So I will move the consent agenda minus items.
Minus items.
1 through 13, 16, and
So
20.
the consent agenda now consists of A14, A15. We go up through 26. A17, 18, 19, and 21 through
I
26.
did, thank you.
So, Councilmember Reed has moved the consent agenda, which consists of items A14, 15, 17, 18, 19, and 21 through 26. It's been seconded by,
I'll second it.
somebody to my right.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Harris. Is there any discussion on those items? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda, which includes only those items previously
Aye.
mentioned, has passed.
I will move items A1, A2, A through A13.
Councilmember Kelly, does that work for you?
No, A1 would be separate.
I'll move item A1.
Thank you.
And seconded by?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Harris. Is there any discussion on item A1? Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, just as a point of clarification and understanding, with regard to the overall bills pay list, how this stands in terms of what was budgeted. And I'm just wondering if, generally speaking, if this can be something that could be addressed. So, for example, the salary, let's see, what was paid for, the two payments of, just a moment, I'll pull this up. Just to have an idea as to whether that was below what was budgeted or above. So the payroll in the amount of what comes to around $7 million from November 20th through December 17th. Is there, and if we can't, if that's not available right now, that's fine, but it would just be nice to have an idea in general, like whether this is within what we budgeted or exceeding or under. Can that be, is that information that's available?
That is a question for staff. Is there, it looks like Hitesh Desai is online. Mr. Desai.
Yes, good evening, Chair and the members of the committee. Obviously, the budget is by fund, so we'll have to look at it after, because there will be a lot of adjustments in the next few weeks about the 23 expenses, besides the payroll, some of the other payments for the utilities, the equipment, services, and all that. So, yeah, we will kind of run a tentative numbers now through all the way until the June, when the numbers are finalized, to see where we are. But obviously, yeah, we don't know by the payroll because it is split over at least 10 different funds, and some of the bills are even for more than 20 funds.
Thank you. Okay, so in general, it just seems like as we come forward, it'd be nice to know, and I understand it's by fund, and we approve a budget by funds. if it's within, if we're staying within our budget amount or if we're exceeding. And that would give us a better idea as to where we're headed as we move through the year. So I would just ask, going forward along with the payroll as well as the bills pay list, and I understand some bills might come up later or earlier, but it doesn't matter. I think it would be really important for council to know this is still under what we had budgeted by this time of year or for this section. Because I look at this and I'm not going to go through those thousands of lines of bills pay and go back to the budget, but I think it would be good for us to know. I don't know how my colleagues, how you all feel about that, but I think to know if when we're approving something, if we're exceeding or not what we had previously budgeted might be helpful.
I think one of the items on the to-do list for this year at the Finance and Budget Committee is report structure and timing. So I think this would definitely fall into that category and something that would be addressed in that venue.
Great, thank you. So I'll be looking, hopefully we'll move in that direction so as a whole council we can know if we're staying within our budget. Thank you.
Okay.
So that's all.
No further discussion on item A1. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item A1 carries, which brings us to items A2 through 13 collectively.
Yes, I move items A2 through A13.
Okay, and I second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. So I just wanted for myself, and I think also for the public, these are all 12 out of 12 items that are sole sourced. Just to understand a little bit the process, since we are a public entity, we want a fair, transparent, and process where we get, the best product, the best price. If we could just get, so I see, for example, and it's not knocking, criticizing any one of these contracts that we're awarding, all 12 out of 12 that are sole source, but, I see like we're having a basketball and volleyball program from Michigan City, Indiana coming here. I'm surprised we can't hire locally on that. And how does that work that we're sole sourcing on all of these items? And is this standard practice? Because all of those items are sole sourced as opposed to saying, okay, yeah, you have a great program, but you'll have to go through the bid process. If someone could explain to me why all of these are sole, like that, why do we bring in a basketball instructor program from Michigan City, Indiana as a sole source?
That is a question for staff. Looks like we have Parks and Rec Director Audrey Thompson.
Good evening. Audrey Thompson, Parks and Rec Department Director. I am actually going to let our program coordinator, Eric Eichholz, discuss more of why we are looking to get approval for the sole source agreement. And so I'll be here just in case you need some backup.
And to be clear, I just gave that as an example, but again, all 12 of these, 12 out of 12 are sole sourced.
Yeah, good evening all. With that, each sole source is a little different. The one specifically for volleyball, that's from Michigan City. They've been with the city of Evanston since 1992, kind of running programs, and they have staff that's, Evanston residents and everything, and they're really the ones that can meet all of the needs we have. So they basically do programming year-round, 12 months out of the year, and do summer camps and evening classes at a bunch of our different facilities. They're one of the only companies that can kind of meet that need of allowing residents, to be able to participate in classes year-round. Along with some of the other sole sources are the same way, of where they're really the only ones that offer those type of services. And especially during the times that we need them available to do so.
Okay, thank you. I guess I would, even if we're extending contracts, if we already have a contract for whatever number of years, that's it. But I am slightly concerned about this, 12 out of 12 sole source contracts. And it's not just in Parks and Rec, it's,
Looks like items A5 through 13 are Parks and Rec. Items A3 and 4 are elsewhere.
and A2 also, I think.
And 2.
And
Yes,
A2.
2 through 4.
Yeah, so I think as a public entity, probably the program that we want or that is the best, I would assume would probably maybe get the contract anyway, even if put out to bid or I think we also have, a chess program that might be fabulous. I'm not doubting that it isn't. But again, it's not from Evanston. A lot of these are from, other cities. And again, not just Parks and Rec. Like the Cisco, I don't know, but so for example, on item, let's see, with the Cisco systems, can anybody else besides Heartland, for example, install, this isn't, I don't think, Parks and Rec, like this system? I mean, is Cisco the only company that, is Heartland the only company that can install this software program in A3? I think that's probably for Ms. Biggs or,
No, it's an IT.
I'm sorry, am I looking at the wrong item?
No, it's A3, but it's IT.
A3 is.
Oh, it's IT, I'm sorry.
Is there somebody from the IT department who could speak to item A3?
Maybe our city manager, who's had experience
Or
there.
while we're looking for that person, Councilmember Kelly, do you have any other particular questions for staff?
Let's see, so that's
Member Reed
a,
is also
okay.
sought recognition.
Do you, go ahead. I'll defer to Councilmember Reed for the moment.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the work that the Parks and Rec team has done to provide all the services that we do for our residents, as well as particularly activating spaces that we want to make sure are utilized. I too have a similar concern to Councilmember Kelly about the sole source. I'm, for example, looking at one of the fitness programs where there's a sole source, and Director Thompson knows we've met with a 8th Ward resident who was interested in engaging in a contract with the city, potentially to have utilize a space for fitness classes. And so I just want to make sure that we are opening up these opportunities to Evanston residents. So can you just give me a bit of background on A11, the sole source with Carl Rosenthal, for example, or Marla Lampert?
Yeah, one second. This is Brandon Taylor with the Levy Center who can help answer some of those.
Good evening, everyone. To speak on Carl Rosenthal, again, that kind of goes along with what Eric was talking about. Carl has been teaching the pickleball workshops at Levy for years, so he's kind of a staple there. He has a great following along with Marla Lampert. Marla probably averages about 60 seniors in her classes. So for like her cardio strength and stretch, she probably averages about 60 of those. Paxa Gym, along with her Pilates sculpt class again, probably averages about 30 seniors. So if we did get rid of somebody like Marla, I might be on the chopping block there. But again, same thing with Carl. He just has a very loyal following. So that's kind of why we stick with them and continue to do this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And they've, both folks clearly, by the information you just shared, have given a lot to the community. But I just want to make sure that we're providing opportunities for Evanston residents, for new folks to have an opportunity to build that same following and create a dedicated.
And we are not opposed to having additional programs. We do have a process for that. It is a link that just allows any individual to say they would like to have a program with our Parks and Rec department in one of our spaces. And then we would talk with them and agree on a split depending on what is being offered from our department, whether that's a 50-50, 60-40, or 70-30 split. So we are not opposed and welcome additional programs. I do think that whenever we have older adults who are subscribing to a specific program really because of the instructor, it becomes really difficult to take away that particular program, which makes it a sole source. However, if there's someone else who would like a line dance class or a fitness class, we are totally open. They just have to complete the form that says we want to have a program in partnership with the Parks and Rec department and have a conversation, and that's pretty much it. We welcome that.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I do want to ask that we try to promote that more, and whether we put it out in a newsletter, we feature it prominently on the Parks and Rec department page. I just want us to get that information out more, and maybe even build into the process, even with these folks who have a great following, that we're getting more feedback, because, again, I hate that we're using specific names and specific people,
Sure.
but, while there are 30 people that are showing up to one class, maybe there are 50 more people that don't feel comfortable with that class and would rather another instructor. And so I just want to make sure that we're getting more feedback from folks, and we're not just assuming that, they're the best fit for our particular programming, other than, and I haven't heard anything about these folks, great folks, but I'm sure, but.
Absolutely, and I do want you to know that we do take surveys in order to ensure that people are enjoying the class and it is actually meeting their needs. I do want to just clarify one thing. So where we do struggle is when an individual wants to rent our space and then charge without any collaboration with our department. So we do not allow, in the instance that we discussed as far as a fitness class, understanding that there are many businesses in the city of Evanston that have yoga, and because of the taxes that they pay, they are in essence supporting our Parks and Rec department. So to allow someone to come in and do a yoga class without any overhead really does not do anyone justice as far as our businesses that are actually supporting our programs. So we want to make sure that people aren't setting up shop in our community centers and taken away from some of the businesses that are out in the community without a collaboration, certificate of insurance, and all of that really actually protects our investment.
Thank you. Just one correction. I don't know if a yoga studio pays taxes.
Well,
Certainly not sales taxes.
If
I
they
don't
are
believe.
in EAC or something like that, they would pay some taxes, and then that would come back into the cities, as far as the general fund or whatever taxes that they're paying. So yeah.
Yeah, but on that last point, I appreciate that. I do think that we should revisit that policy.
Yeah.
I do think it, creates an opportunity for someone who has a smaller business to be able to scale up slowly by utilizing a city facility. We're thinking about that. I know Clerk Mendoza and Manager Zamilzak, Economic Development Manager Zamilzak, are looking at potentially creating a shared kitchen space.
Absolutely.
So it's a similar model. Even, you've got a brilliant idea for other spaces. I think we should revisit that policy.
And understanding that it's not a no.
Right.
It's that it's not possible without collaboration from our department. So when we're collaborating as far as vendors, we are taking the registration, we are advertising for that particular program, and then we're also making sure that individuals sign a waiver. So if individuals are agreeable to that, but to come in and to just rent our space and then charge a per head admission cost, that's where we run into issues. If someone gets hurt and they haven't signed a waiver, then those become problematic. Those issues become problematic.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Harris, and then back to Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah, so I have a different perspective, having worked at the Levy Center, and my staff, people who were in charge of me before I got up here, back here. So hi, you guys. Thank you all. There were very specific calls for very specific people. They wanted to know when they called the Levy Center who's teaching it. And those numbers were astronomical. And we did go through the process of if people were interested, because we would have people say, oh, I'd like to teach, I think it was Zumba. And they came in and we gave them the paperwork to fill that out to be able to become instructors. So a lot of these things, and especially for our seniors, as we heard our boat seniors talk about, it's process, it's policy, it's memory, right? Muscle memory of this is who I like. Could we get 70 people if we had somebody else? Maybe. But I understand the rationale for that most definitely at the Levy Center, because I saw it, I experienced it. And when I can't remember, who was it, Brandon, when she was sick? Okay, Marilyn, when she was sick, people were upset. Like, we had a substitute, and they were like, nope, we're not coming. So they wanted refunds, actually. So I see both sides of that. As long as the opportunity is there, I believe it is. I believe we could publicize it a little better.
Absolutely.
But it's there. So there are opportunities for people to step up to the plate. If we, as council, as residents, as city staff know of people, we can also make that recommendation as well to say, hey, you know what? You teach a really good whatever, step up to the plate. So I'm just going to give the other side of that. Having worked as a staff member at the Levy Center, I saw that in action.
Thank you.
Okay, then back to Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, also, I deeply appreciate all the great work that you're doing in Parks and Rec. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm not doubting who we're hiring. Many of, who we're giving contracts to are from outside of the city, and they are very likely, I trust, the very best. I do think continuity is important, as Councilmember Harris and as Ms. Thompson mentioned, but I think that could maybe be worked into sort of the evaluation process. I just think for the public, we all trust, but it's just sort of a process that might be good to have in place so that continuity, ranks you higher. If we want to continue with the same person without doing any sort of bidding process to ensure that, just so for the public, I think that they see that we are, I just think when we have 12 out of 12 sole source contracts, we might need to look at how we're addressing this. And I think probably in every case, again, if we look at the evaluation process, the same contracts would likely be awarded based on their having a strong record, a past record, track record. So that's all I would ask, that we maybe look at how we're doing this to see if we can open it up and give emphasis and points to that continuity with a strong record so that the folks that we would like to continue hiring that are best for our residents would be hired again.
Right, and since I do have the podium right now, I will make this call to individuals who might be looking and would like to partner with Parks and Rec. This will be a perfect opportunity for them to, be in contact with us. We will do a better job at advertising those possibilities. Our department is also in an internal strategic plan because we don't want individuals to believe that just because the Levy Senior Center has senior on it, that is the only place that a person can provide services to older adults. We have several community centers, and so we would like to spread our programs and services across the city rather than specializing in one particular community center.
And just as a point of reference before we move on, a point of information, the city is coming out ahead with these recreation contracts.
Absolutely.
We're making money on these,
Definitely.
right?
We do.
Right, and the amount we charge for the program, is that directly related to how much the instructor costs?
It is. So it's after the cost. So we still want to make a profit on top of that, but not to the detriment of our community members. We still want to make it.
But it's a percentage.
It is a percentage.
Right.
And part of just depends on what that particular instructor needs. So if you need a place to store, then the percentage is more evened out because now we're providing storage space. If you need equipment, then that percentage is different. So if you're really just partnering with us and as far as making sure that those programs are advertised and that we are working with the certificate of insurance and we give the space, then that's more of a 70-30. So the percentages, we've been very intentional about how we look at the percentages as far as what the city is providing and what the vendor is providing.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kelly, you're good. You still had a question about the IT item.
Right, I guess that's another sole source, just to understand if, I think it's
Heartland.
is the only one that can do the installation for if there was a reason we didn't bid out.
I will say, I'm not an IT person, but my understanding from a conversation I had with a friend who is, a lot of times these programs are proprietary and operate with their approved vendors who are allowed to, who have the expertise to work on some of these programs. So this may be the case here.
It just, I read through it, I just didn't see an explanation, so.
Maybe we can
All right, so then without any further discussion on items A2 through 13, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Items A2 through A13 are passed,
I will,
which brings us to A16.
I'll move item A16.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Harris. Is there any discussion on item A16? And this is the vote.
Launch. Yeah, the boat launch.
Councilmember Reed and then Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. I think there's another Parks and Rec. Mr. Callahan, how are you, sir? So first, I thank you. I'm just curious if you can respond to, I don't know if you're around for public comment, but some of the concerns that folks raised during public comment.
So, Michael Callahan, Assistant Director of Parks and Rec. So, one of the difficulties that we have is with real estate down on the lakefront. We only have so much sand to operate. And when it comes to non-motorized vessels and launches, the only place that is allowed to have that type of facility is at Dempster Beach, Dempster Launch Facility, and that is per city ordinance. So we have thought about possibly branching out and moving some other areas, but without a change in the ordinance, that would not be possible. We've looked at adding additional racks. Purchased the racks, they are approximately about $10,000 each for a rack. It'd take at least 3 years for us to recoup that cost.
If I may interject, $10,000 and how many slots do we get?
10 slots. 10 slots
$1,000
for
per
paddleboard.
slot. Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, it's very costly, but it does alleviate that. But like I said, the only area that we have is at the Dempster Launch Facility, and with the fluctuating lake levels, it's been very difficult to actually increase the number of racks there. We've looked at reconfiguring the lake, the beachfront to allow more. This is the configuration that seems to work the best.
Thank you. And so I heard from public comment there's a 700-person wait list, 600-person, 700. And are we sure those are all folks who? How old is this list? Is this every year this list is renewed, or
No,
are there folks from 1992?
It's a very staggering number. It is actually a yearly list, so
Okay.
it is accurate.
Well, one, I don't want to have, an ordinance is, words on paper, so we can change the words on paper if we believe that we need to add more racks at other locations. I'm not opposed to that. Can you respond to, I think I support the policy as is, with the understanding that we could add, and that I would be supportive of adding more racks and maybe amending the ordinance, but why was it the policy that if we have such a large wait list, why are we allowing folks to store 2 boats or
Before
craft?
it was, we didn't allow double stacking at all on any of the racks. We have actually implemented that to try to allow people that do have 2, like paddle boards or something of that nature, to be able to store those in one single space. So we've tried that to help alleviate it. There have been some other discussions. With me tonight is Tim Carter. He is the division manager for the lakefront. He can speak a little bit more about the specifics of this. He's been working on this for going on 2 years now, trying to figure some of this out.
Last 2 questions. What is the lifespan of one of these racks?
The metal racks, I really do not know that answer.
Okay. And how much do we charge per year? $303. Okay, good.
Good evening, Director Kano, members of the committee. We charge $303 per year for the rack storage. It varies between whether it's a paddleboard or a sailboat type of vessel.
Do you know when the last time we replaced or purchased a new rack was?
There was a capital improvement plan, I believe, in 2018. Laura might have that information, where all the racks were replaced.
And then
2010. 2010.
So
My apologies,
20
2010.
So 2010 was the last time they were replaced.
I don't have that information. They're saying 2010, but I honestly don't
Okay.
have that information from me.
And
I can get that to you.
And then maybe, do you know when they were replaced before that, before 2010?
Those previous racks were there, I came on the beach in 1980. Those racks, the low racks were there. The lakefront strategic planning process was very involved with this.
If you could speak at the podium.
It's fine. I'll just repeat what the only reason I asked is because
I want to make sure the folks online can.
yeah,
hear,
the response was that the racks have been there since potentially the 80s before 2010 when they were
probably
replaced.
there beforehand.
Okay.
They were replaced in 2010 as a part of the strategic planning process.
Yeah.
And those racks have been there since.
Okay. And my only reason for asking is I want to get an idea of what the lifespan of these racks are, if we're charging the appropriate amount, what the opportunity for adding new racks is, and, if we're charging, it's pretty good revenue. If it's $1,000 for for each slot, and we're charging $303 a year.
I think the amortization of the current racks was completed in 3 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, if you look at the pass-out sheets, the handouts, you'll see pictures in the back. There's a whole level of single-level racks that are in terrible shape. They're going to require a lot of maintenance, a lot of rebuilding. And as a result, those are the areas that we're recommending, or we would like to work with the city on this so that we can develop a unified plan before you in developing that area and having many more racks and cutting down the wait list.
Thank you.
I would like to move the conversation along here. Do
Yes,
you have
yes.
more questions?
And so that, given those numbers, I am fully supportive of adding new racks. I think this, it clearly pays for itself. And looking at the pictures that were provided, there might even be some welder in Evanston who can make this for us for a lot cheaper, but, that's neither here nor there. But I would certainly request that I support moving this forward. But I would support, because I think we're never going to have enough slots for 700 folks, so I think we still need to move forward with this, but I think it makes sense to add additional.
And if I may, I do want to clarify something. If we could add more spots at Dempster right now, I think we would. We want to. We want to get more people on the beach. Unfortunately, there's just not enough room on Dempster.
Right.
So, your options are expanding north to Greenwood. That would maybe cause us to repurposing Greenwood Street Beach, potentially. The other option would be, too, is to explore other beaches. The problem in there is our rescue boat is housed at Dempster Street Beach Sailing Facility. So the city would have to invest in another rescue boat and staff at another beach. So if somebody falls off a paddleboard or a sailboat, then our sailing staff get to that person before EFD gets out there. So those are some of the other logistics we would have to think about.
Maybe Lincoln Street Beach is an option, but I support this. Maybe someone will co-sponsor an ordinance to revise to allow us in the future to potentially add new slots somewhere else.
I'm going to, if you're done
I'm
for
done.
now, I'm going to recognize Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. First of all, how many are allowed per household now? How many slips?
There is no limit.
There's no limit. So for starters, I wonder if we could limit it to 2. I do understand, there are many couples that go down either for paddleboards or kayaking, and for one to have to lug one. I mean, I would not be in favor of making it 1, but I would be in favor of reducing it to 2 for starters. I don't know how many have more than that, but I think that I would like to see happen, not reduced to 1, because again, I think there's just too many, people in our city that go down together who've rented them, and we'd be asking. I understand, I'm sympathetic to the wait list. So I'd like to see that explored. I'd also like to see explored about going north, not towards the shoreline, but actually moving north. Even along Dempster, it seems to me there's more space going north. So if we could explore expanding that direction. And the expense side, I think it will be amortized, as mentioned, in a very short time. So I think it's worth investing in this. And I guess I'd also like, I think it is important, since we have such a community around this, that this is sort of moves in concert with our community. I appreciate all this work you've done researching this, but I wonder if this wouldn't be more beneficial in terms of harmony and moving forward and getting it right to move this back to the Parks and Rec Board, just so that our community members can have more participation in discussing it and exploring ideas?
Sure, yeah, and I do want to clarify that this item was given to the Sailing Association for the Parks and Rec before the Parks and Rec Board meeting, so there was time at the Parks and Rec Board meeting to discuss this before it came to you.
Thank
But
you.
we can bring it back and get more community input if that's the direction.
Director Thompson.
I just want to make sure we're not missing a major point here. Equity is the issue. It's more of, even if we said 2 racks per household, then does that mean anyone, even new people, are able to get 2 racks per household? And if we're going to say that the new individuals who are able to get a rack can only have 1, then that really supports what we're describing here as an equity issue. You can't grandfather a policy that has not been equitable, because we have individuals who really need additional space. What we're trying to do is ensure that other individuals are able to get a spot. And we're happy to work with anyone, but even if we did, the resolutions that we're talking about tonight would not put a huge dent, even if we're looking at some of the options that we're discussing that have been presented to you tonight. And I just want to make sure we're not missing the major point. Is it fair? That's all I need.
Thank you.
One point of information. So there's a waiting list. Once you rise to the top, you get a slip, you keep paying every year, you are guaranteed under current policy to maintain that slip. It's not like every year there's a lottery and everyone has an equal chance.
Which is also an issue, but our Parks and Rec Board decided to not all jump at one time,
So the
and to do a
lottery-
little bit at a time.
The lottery idea might be,
Because right now, you're on the list forever, which is quite different from our community gardens, which repeats and starts over every year. So an individual can be on this list for years. I think the average is about 7 years. How fair is that if we're looking to increase the number of people who come, frankly, individuals who even look like me, who need to understand that paddleboarding is for them too? I have something before you all tonight for a sliding scale. This would allow a person to be able to get a lower rate based on income. That's how you increase diversity and equity at the lakefront.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. I wasn't quite finished. I just said, so I agree with you 100%, and I think we should look at this idea of permanent, slots also in the name of equity. I also think in the name of equity, we should absolutely explore building more. Going north, I think we should look at northwestern Evanston Beach. Maybe Northwestern can help foot the bill for that safety boat. And we could put, maybe that could be an exclusively paddleboard beach where but where you could also have paddleboards at the Dempster Street, because I know some paddleboarders might not want to be separated from the sailboat scene, but that could be just exclusively where we put so many paddleboard slips there. I would just like to ask if we could explore this a little bit further before we, at the Parks and Rec Board, all of these options, including maybe stopping the rollover of, just automatically, maybe it's a 2-year instead of permanent or something along those lines, and capping it at 2 per household and exploring it with Northwestern. And I just think there's a lot of other ways to move forward on this, and I know it'll work smoothly with you at the helm and working with the community members. I think we can meet people somewhere and
Point of
Councilmember Reed
order.
has sought recognition. Before we go back to Councilmember Reed for a second time, Councilmember Harris. Okay, Councilmember.
I was going to say point of order if you want to make a motion, but what I'll quickly say, so I'll make the motion if folks are fine with that. But I also, as someone who kind of looks like you, I think if we want to achieve the full equity measure I ain't gonna have a boat that I'm gonna be paying $300 a year or whatever to
You'd be
to place.
surprised.
But I think one thing we can do is also create opportunities for rentals for folks to be able to go down to the lakefront on a day, pay, $20, $30, rent a boat. I know Northwestern has that. I don't think the city
We
has
do.
that.
We actually do.
Oh, okay. Is that new?
However, currently, it's not under the sliding scale fee assistance. It will be if you all vote tonight.
Okay. When did we start that?
It's an amazing program.
Okay.
That was on
So
the
we're good.
consent.
Okay.
So that qualifies. I want you to, again, just what you're saying, like, who would have a $300 whatever? My long-lost uncle could give me a paddleboard or a boat or whatever, but I wouldn't be able to afford the upkeep. What I just want to make sure that we're not doing is setting this beach aside where you get your slip or you get your rack and it's yours forever. 2 and 4, because we have individuals who even have 4. So I'm just trying to make sure that when we're a city who is really trying to promote equity, that includes our lakefront.
Thank you. And I will move that we send this back to the Parks and Rec Board with they can discuss, I think, 1, some say 2, with the parameter to discuss, a limit, potentially even go into the lottery system on an annual or biannual basis. I don't think am I missing any other key point? So I'll move that.
And I'll second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Kelly, that this issue be referred back to the Parks and Rec Committee for additional discussion. Is there any discussion
And
on?
also, point of order, this
motion.
is not an ordinance, correct? It's just a policy.
Not right.
Does council have to approve this?
According to yes.
I'm
And
happy
the short,
to.
The
Okay.
short answer is yes.
Okay. Yep, that's it.
All right. So any discussion on the motion to refer this back to committee?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
Didn't I hear you say you already did this? So I'm not
So we did.
keen to refer it back to the people that just had the discussion, so I'm confused. We're wasting time.
So we did have a pretty robust conversation with the Parks and Rec Board. We have a member who also is one of the individuals who comes to Dempster Street. So, we had a pretty robust conversation. However, I want to be respectful of our community members. And if individuals felt that they were not heard at the Parks and Rec Board and they were not there, I want them to feel heard. So I am okay with this being taken back to the Parks and Rec Board so those individuals can talk with the Parks and Rec Board, and we'll let the Parks and Rec Board say, we still feel the way we felt then.
Thank you so much for
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
So I have a couple things on that. Evanston is in the habit of hearing no as not being heard. And I've said it earlier to other people, but I think I need to be clear here. 2024 is a new year, gonna get a new attitude, new city. So no is an answer. No has been possibly heard. It's just no. And we need to be okay with that. If Parks and Rec Board stood by that, then I support the people that we placed on the board who had a meeting. People said they were invited. You said they were invited, so I'm trusting that they were invited. I don't want to waste time. We bring stuff back and forth, back and forth. We're not playing volleyball. A decision has been made. It is up to us as a council to make a decision and move on. That's 2024.
So I think prolonging this will not have another answer as far as the 1 rack per household. What I do think is that once we come back, I'll be here asking for money in order to expand to other areas. But in order to remove people off the list, the 1 per household is just great practice and policy moving here out.
In addition to money, you may also be asking for a change to the ordinance to allow boats on other beaches.
Right, and
So
just
that's a substantive
understanding,
difference in
and I'll say it here, that there will be some other options that will cause other community members to have an issue. And I mean that by, if we are going to expand even to Greenwood, it's going to be difficult to have swimming there. So I want to be clear.
Thank you.
Everybody's lights are on here.
I think
so
I was
let's-
on first
I think
before
Councilmember
Claire.
Harris still has the floor.
Oh.
Okay, if I still have the floor, I'll keep it. Yes, that is a concern, that now we're going to disenfranchise those that don't want a boat, can't afford a sleeve, aren't interested, to expand a program that sounds good, 700 wait lists, but we have a city of 78,000 people. So I'm concerned about that because those are people that look like me, that may not have that, and people that may not look like me, but I do have that concern. So that is an issue to me. And if we could prevent you from coming back from asking for money, we need to vote on this today.
I'm always happy to expand our programs and services.
Okay. Councilmember Reed, Councilmember Kelly, we are quite over time here.
Yes,
So.
and I am happy to move this along. I hear what Councilmember Harris is saying. That's one of my great frustrations. So Councilmember Kelly, if you don't mind, I'm happy to just make amendments now. I don't know if we need to kick it back. I'm happy to implement a lottery that happens
I don't think
every
we have
2
time
years.
now to explore and
Or,
have that
I'm happy
discussion.
to bring it back to this committee, move it forward to council, and table it there. If there's another
I
route that
assume-
you're.
Might I suggest the following course of action? Taking the feedback from Director Thompson that if this does go back to the Parks and Rec Board, they're unlikely to revise their recommendation on this particular policy. Perhaps we could vote on this policy tonight, but request Parks and Rec to further consider the issue in terms of expanding the number of racks, whether it's on Dempster Street or other beaches. And that would involve money, hopefully not quite as much as the number you said, because that seems ridiculous, but also an ordinance change perhaps to allow boats in additional beaches. Councilmember Kelly.
So I just want to make a couple of comments. I still feel very much that this needs to go to Parks and Rec. Again, just to explore all the possibilities, because one might impact the other. I also think, many people and couples who access the sliding scale would very much like to each have a paddleboard or to each have maybe a kayak. And so I think we should definitely, I'd be ready to move to say to limit it to 2, and I'd also be willing to say let's limit the number of years. But even that, I think it deserves that aspect deserves a more finely focused conversation, one not for APW. And the reason we have a Parks and Rec Board, I also think there are a lot of members who felt like because of the holidays, they missed it and they weren't able to participate the way they would like to have at the Parks and Rec Board. For that reason, more than anything, I think it should go back so that our community feels like, that it's after the holidays and they can be more fully engaged. And I'd also like to ask that we reach out to Northwestern and find out and start that conversation about potentially having a paddleboard beach there and sharing the cost there. And I want to remind what was said, that if we do invest, and I think it would be great if you came back asking for more money, because we saw that this is amortized in a matter of 3 years and we start making money. So I think that would be great. I'd love to see you coming back if you're going to Parks and Rec and asking for more money to put in more slips. And I think we can put in more right on the Dempster Beach going north also without getting into the Greenwood Beach swimming area. So for all those reasons, I don't think we should be picking this apart right now, because one aspect might impact another. And again, 2, there are many low-income or people who might access that sliding scale that might very much like to be able to go down with their husband or wife and enjoy each of them going out in a kayak or paddleboard. So I would still like to see this referred back to Parks and Rec.
So if I'll summarize where we're at. A motion has been made to refer this entire issue back to Parks and Rec. It's been properly seconded. There has been discussion on that issue. Is there any further discussion on that motion right now? Okay. At this point, I'm going to weigh in, just kind of reiterate what I think is the right course of action would be to approve this evening, pending, and then request Parks and Rec to further discuss the issue, as I said earlier, because it's clear that we have a lot of demand for boating facilities on the lake, boating, paddleboarding, sailboarding, et cetera. And we'd love to be able to meet that demand by expanding our supply of those services. And just as a point of clarification, one rack can hold 2 paddleboards.
It
Right?
just depends on the type of rack.
Depends.
We got vertical racks, we got horizontal
Okay.
racks. Yep.
All right. All right. So without any further.
Yeah, if I can just say, I'm going to vote yes to send it back to Parks and Rec. What I'll ask is that maybe a colleague will also support a referral, or 2 colleagues, I guess, a referral to expand this and have a broader view, and so that we're not just sending the same exact thing back to them, we're sending it back with a broader scope so they can analyze it with a bit of new information. So I would encourage Councilmember Newsom or Harris to also support this. I know.
Okay. I'm going to call a roll call vote on this one. Edgar, if you do the honors.
Councilmember Harris?
We're voting on sending it back.
We are voting on sending it back to.
No.
Councilmember Newsma?
No.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
All right, so I believe that motion does not carry because it did not receive a majority. And I believe we still have the underlying motion on the policy.
I would move to table this, or I'm sorry, if I can be recognized.
If you are
I
recognized.
would move to table this to our next meeting, and so we can be the venue to flesh this out a bit more with Director Thompson and other folks.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we table this to the next meeting of this committee. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I will call the roll.
Councilmember Harris?
No.
Councilmember Newsma?
No.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
So that
We're gonna do
motion
this all night.
fails, which brings us to the underlying motion. And just as what's going to happen, what may happen here, not that I have a crystal ball of any kind of perfection, a split vote at this committee moves the issue to council with a neutral recommendation, and then kicks the issue to council later this evening. So, Councilmember Reed.
Yeah, I will move to amend this proposal to institute a biannual lottery system.
Love the idea, but not without some further discussion.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I tried to provide
It
a
hasn't
venue
been
for that.
vetted. It just hasn't been vetted, so we
So
don't
then
know if that
maybe we
makes
can table
sense.
this to the next meeting?
I
so it
agree.
can't-
I mean, I think this is a very important point, and that it shouldn't be, like, that should be discussed too, like every 2 years that it gets, new lottery. I just think this is such a huge part of our Evanston lakefront that I'm sorry that we're not moving this. Can this be held?
Can
move
I,
to
Can't be held,
can
but
I
it can be.
clarify? Because the lottery is not a part of this.
Right.
So if you all are voting on that, the issue is the one per household. So to send it back would just mean that the Parks and Rec would be looking at exactly what you're saying, which that is already on the agenda for the Parks and Rec Board, to do exactly what you're talking about, and that's to figure out the lottery. Should it resemble what we have for the community gardens? Right now, the biggest issue is one rack per household.
I'm going to take privilege and call for the question.
Calling the question requires a vote on calling the question. I think we're almost there anyway. So I will, as chair,
Doesn't require.
It requires a vote.
yeah. Let's just vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are voting on this policy
As it
as
stands.
written. Okay. Edgar, please.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsma?
Yes.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
No.
All right. So by a vote of 3-1, this committee endorses the policy as written, and this will advance to council to appear on our agenda later this evening.
I will move item 820. Is that where we are?
Yes.
Second.
There we go.
If you could read that one out.
Yeah, I will move item 820, Resolution 3R24, authorizing the settlement and release of all claims in Kelly et al. V. City of Evanston, 2021 CH 00515.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Harris. Is there any discussion on item 820?
I just very
Yeah.
Yeah, I just very quickly want to highlight for us again, this is now the second time in the last few months that we have had to approve a FOIA settlement. This is greater than the last one. This is $15,000, if I remember correctly. I want us to be, I think FOIA is in this sense, right, FOIA is great. I'm the former clerk, love FOIA, but it is a liability when we aren't very thorough with the release of documents and we aren't as transparent as we can be, reasonably can be. And I think this is an example of us not being obviously transparent. We're paying $15,000 and from an insurance fund that in years past has been woefully underfunded. And so I just really want us to be more cognizant of FOIA. That's it.
All right, with no further discussion on item 820, I'll just call a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Right, okay. By a vote of 3-0, with one abstention, item 820 passes to City Council. All right, that concludes our meeting for this evening. A&P, or Planning and Development, will start as soon as we can manage to get everybody in the room. Thank you, everybody.